Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us on Across the Fence. I'm Jolie Whitney. We learned last week that a story we broadcast on Across the Fence won an honorable mention at the 2025 Boston New England chapter of the Emmy Student Production Awards. That was in the category of college and university long form. The award was for a story done by Caleb May, who, along with working part-time for Across the Fence, has been a student in UVM's Rubenstein School of Environment and Natural Resources. Caleb's time with us is coming to a close now because he's graduating in a couple of days. Caleb, that's incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Jolie.
So we're about to see the piece in full, but first I just want to ask a little bit, what was this process? Where did you guys go?
Yeah, so these were my two friends, Connor and Vegas, in the Rubenstein School, and I had known that they were doing this research on birds across many sites in New England, but this specific one that I joined them for was the Silvio Conte National Wildlife Refuge in the Northeast Kingdom. Stunning place. It was a great place to shoot.
Absolutely. I'm sure it was beautiful, but it also sounds like you were up pretty early and you were kind of harshing some elements there. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so because birds are singing early in the morning, they have to be up early as well. So it was a 3:30, 4 o'clock wake up and then lugging the camera through the mud and the trees was difficult but very rewarding at the end of it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Caleb, and let's take a look.
As Dolly Parton told us back in the day, the 9 to 5 is the standard of the American workday. But some jobs require a more irregular schedule. It is 4 in the morning, and UVM seniors Vegas Rockefeller and Connor Moses are up adhering to the altered adage that the early birder gets the bird. Their job is to record bird species to help gauge the effects of an ongoing collaborative study headed by Director of the UVM Forestry Program, Tony D'Amato.
Yeah, I think, And really what that work is doing is taking this idea of, assessing the vulnerability of a forest to changing conditions like climate, invasive insects, and pathogens, and then deciding are there ways that we can actually manage that forest to try to either resist those change or adaptively kind of respond to those changes.
The project is based on the idea of co-production, which means working with the refuges and forest managers to create specific plans for each site, rather than using a one-size-fits-all model. One of the locations showcases why this approach is so important.
Yeah, the Nulhegan Basin in general is a special place, both ecologically, culturally, very distinctive part of Vermont, and even when we think about the forest types that exist there relative to what we have throughout the rest of the state, you really have, a pretty vulnerable condition, these lowland conifer forests that you might find in small pockets elsewhere, but, the nature of the climate in the Nulhegan Basin, you get a lot of cold air pooling, which really allows for these lowland conifer forests to persist, and really represents kind of the southern range margin of that forest type, which is something we get concerned about as things get warmer. Those trees are going to be increasingly facing, temperatures that they're not well adapted to.
The basin's history as a commercial lumber production site and its importance mean that D'Amato and U.S. Fish and Wildlife have to create and maintain treatment plans.
And what you're doing is really accelerating what would happen over, a 200-year period with, gap scale disturbances, creating an opening here, killing a few trees there. Over time, what that creates in the forest is just really fine scale variability in habitat conditions and forest conditions. It creates small gaps, it creates thinned areas, it creates areas that never will be cut. And so you kind of have this range of open canopy, less open canopy, and dense canopy conditions.
So how exactly are the birds of the basin responding to the study? Well, that is what Moses and Rockefeller are here to find out.
So here at the refuge, we have 34 treatment units, and at each treatment unit, we have a centroid or central point within that plot that we sit at for 12 minutes and visit that every summer, 3 times within the summer. and we record all the birds we've seen here.
So after the early wake-up, they arrive at the first plot and start the 12-minute timer before the sun even has a chance to rise.
Most active, we found between 5 and 6, and the detection rates are highest then. They're singing louder, they're singing more regularly, and so it's important that we are out in the woods looking for these birds when they are most visible and singing.
Each bird calls for its notation on the datasheet, as the air is alive with song. And after 720 seconds and 12 different species, Rockefeller packs up and heads to the next site, while Moses stays behind for another aspect of the study. Rockefeller knows these woods well, and knows what species he can expect at each plot, including some Northeast Kingdom exclusives.
So some of the more rare species, the exciting species that people come to the Nulhegan Basin to see are going to be spruce grouse, Canada warbler, Nashville warbler, mourning warbler, boreal chickadee, blackback woodpecker, Canada jay. Those are some of the exciting species that we see here.
During the summer months, these species rely on the dense conifer forests to raise their young.
That was like 20 to 30 red crossbills. That was crazy. Red crossbills are a species of bird that feed on the spruce pine cones. So it's an eruption year for them. It's a really good spruce cone production year. So we have a lot of red crossbills here in the basin, and about 25-ish of them just flew over. That's the biggest flock we've seen this year.
However, as a wildlife biology major, birds are not the only thing Rockefeller is tuned into. Some are out of curiosity, and others are out of self-preservation, like the time he encountered a moose.
Connor sees the moose and is like, moose, moose. And she charged at us, running right across this gap. I stand up and look at her, and she's just gunning it straight towards me. And I grab my clipboard and I bang it, and she stops and blew an air horn, and she kind of turned it off and trotted away. But we were definitely a little rattled. Moose can be pretty dangerous out here, especially when they're defending their calves. I often tell friends and family that I get chased by moose and bear and count birds in between. So that's the job that we work for the month of June.
Eventually, Moses and Rockefeller cross paths.
Boreal chickadees.
Oh, where?
I think it's still in this plot.
Cool.
Just listen for them, they're going to be...
And while
little
one
bit
has a more
towards the
passive
right.
form of birding, Moses has a slightly more demanding job: tracking and mapping Canada warblers.
So I think we have a Nashville's that's calling. Today I came out here and there's one singing behind me that I followed around for 2 hours, and I went and I took 20 different GPS markers of where this guy was singing, and then we're going to be able to go put that on the computer and look at their territory.
Moses and Rockefeller do this work for the month of June, collecting both vital information for the project and valuable experience for themselves.
You know, writ large, any hands-on experience really is so important for giving that real-life context for what they're learning in the classroom, and both in terms of, you know, observing wildlife, observing, you know, kind of how wildlife habitat is responding to forest management, but also, you know, working with those managers and really understanding, you know, how do they view this through the day job that some of these students ultimately want to have.
For Moses and Rockefeller, this is more than just a summer job. Following a particular black-backed woodpecker sighting, we could see Rockefeller's passion shining through.
We were hoping that black-backed woodpecker would respond positively to that treatment and kind of return to these sites and nest in some of these standing trees and feed in the ones that have died. And now that we just got a black-backed woodpecker land on that snag over there is pretty exciting. So that's a first for us here at the refuge and in these treatments.
With a new generation of forward-thinking foresters and wildlife managers, the future is bright for Vermont's forests and our feathered friends that call them home. From Brunswick, Vermont, I'm Caleb May with Across the Fence.
Congratulations again, Caleb. What an incredible piece. So what's your plan after graduation?
So as of right now, definitely going back home to Connecticut, and then fingers crossed, but have a potential teaching position at a school as their film and photography teacher. So nothing definitive yet, but we'll see. Just definitely going back home to Connecticut for the time being.
Yeah, passing along some of your honorable mention chops.
I will pass along the wisdom of Keith and Ben to the next generation of filmmakers.
Absolutely, and birding has become a real passion of yours. Is that something you hope to keep doing?
Yeah, it definitely is. This, I was just telling Keith on the ride over, I got to get out because spring migration's starting, and it's, I think, something that will always be a part of me, whether that's a hobby or as a profession. So we'll see where life takes me.
Yeah, that's incredible. Good luck with everything, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
And that takes care of our show for today. My thanks to the award-winning crew behind the scenes here at WCIX. I'm Jolie Whitney. This is Across the Fence. Have a good one.